So we're going to go ahead and get started. Some of these updates are going to be pretty quick. Wanted to let you all know we are hard at work on our point in time count and entering our housing inventory count data. As you all know, I'm sure you've seen some of the point in time count get released from other continuums of care, and again, most of those are one county. So we are actually working through ours pretty quickly and hoping to have the PIT count numbers completed by the 14th and get your individual community reports out to you. And Lindsay is in there now, counting away. We'll also be having a follow-up webinar with our point in time count leads just to do our due diligence to point out some areas we may have seen possibilities for improvement and to make sure we're providing you all with all the support you need to complete PIT counts in your community, and just appreciate your help with that. The Provider Connect workshops, I was lucky to be able to go to Longview and Denton to meet with all of our grantees in that area and a few from a few other places, and did our workshops with our APT and CSHTA providers. I can't say enough positive things about this experience. It was so great for me to get to know our grantees, to better understand their programs. I think we also were able to provide them with a lot of in-depth knowledge from our TA providers on how they can best operate CoC programs, and probably gave them some information on things they maybe weren't aware of or had forgotten. And again, our goal with those is just to make sure our grantees are as supported as possible in our following HUD regs, so we can continue to get these projects funded and to get them performing as best they can. And the feedback we've gotten from that first round was just overwhelmingly positive. We're hoping for the same and expect the same at our next round, the last week in March, when we will be in Galveston, Beaumont, and Corpus Christi. As a result of those Provider Connect workshops, we started our one-on-one grantee reviews today, and we'll be doing those after each workshop with the attendees for those specific workshops. And this morning went really well. I think, again, we were able to provide some one-on-one attention and guidance and a lot of feedback to this program about our scoring process, HUD expectations, where we're going as a balance of state, and really kind of work on a plan individually for each program. So we're really looking forward to these, and so far the feedback's been really great. I think there were a few clappable moments this morning. We didn't do that. We've been doing that at meetings lately, though. And next, Mary is going to give you all an update on the 2016 ESG NOFA announcement and process.
Hello, everyone. Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, or TDHCA, released their Notice of Funding Availability, or NOFA, for their FY 2016 Emergency Solutions Grant Program, or ESG. I'm sure many of you know about that. And that was released on February 18th, and they've got all the application materials on their website. One piece of that continuums of care need to help with is for any applicant in a CoC, they will need to submit something that TDHCA is calling Attachment A, and that is the verification of the applicant's participation in the CoC. And we have created a process for any applicant in our CoC to request that form, and Cameron sent an email about it on March 4th. We also posted it on our website on March 3rd, and you'll see it on your screen. We've got 4 steps. The first one is that any applicant will need to complete an online survey, and it has questions that help us better understand what the applicant is applying for, which services they're proposing to provide, how many people they're proposing to serve, and what their outcomes are projected to be, so that we better understand what they're applying for. And then we will answer, on staff, we'll answer the 5 questions that are actually on the Attachment A form and send those back to every lead applicant and every partner applicant. If there's a collaborative application, it would have a lead applicant and partner applicants. Or for an individual application, of course, we'll just send the one form to the applicant. And then the applicants will submit those Attachment A forms as part of their application to TDHCA. So we are not running the competition. We are only helping applicants complete Attachment A of the application. So on the next page, you'll see that we have a CoC map, just so that everyone knows if they're in Valentine State CoC and need to be coming through us for this process, because there has been a little confusion about which agencies are in the BOS. So basically any potential applicant that's in one of those orange counties is in Texas Valentine State CoC and would need to get that form signed by us. On the third page of this form, we have listed the survey questions so people can prepare ahead of time before they get into the online survey and know exactly what we're asking and have their questions ready, their answers ready to enter into the survey. And that's actually on pages 3 and 4. Then on the last page, we wanted to be really transparent with people about exactly how we would determine the answers that we will put in those 5 questions that TDHCA's application is asking for. Frequency of the organization's participation in the general meetings for our CoC. Again, we spelled out very clearly that for most of the year, those were the CoC board meetings, but that changed in October, to where for November and December, they are the RPG meetings that we consider the CoC general meetings. And so we have attendance records from all those meetings, and we'll be able to see whether someone from that applicant agency participated in those meetings or not. The second question was the organization involved in the January 2016 point in time count. Of course, we'll use our records here for knowing which agencies participated in that and which communities. Third, did the organization listed above consult with the CoC while preparing their application? If they fill out a survey and we understand their answers or they answer any follow-up questions from us, then yes, that will be considered having consulted with the CoC when they fill out the online survey. Do the organization's proposed ESG activities align with the CoC priorities? Our sort of way that we'll determine the answer for that is that if the proposed activities are allowable under ESG and the applicant agrees to meet all ESG program requirements, then we will consider them for this year to align with the CoC's priorities. And then the last question, does the organization listed above use the coordinated access system? This one's a little trickier for us because we haven't implemented what is now called coordinated entry in most of our BOS communities. So we've clearly spelled out here that we've piloted that in 7 communities: Brownsville, Corpus Christi, Denton, Harlingen, Lubbock, Texarkana, and Tyler. And the only applicants that will receive a yes on this question are if they're located in a pilot community and if they're either conducting coordinated entry assessments in HMIS or are taking coordinated entry referrals. Every other applicant will receive an NA on this question, which means they will not earn the 10 points. But we put a note in there, applicants in the BOS CoC will only compete for those funds against other applicants in the BOS CoC. So just because we haven't fully implemented coordinated entry in our CoC should not negatively affect an applicant from our CoC because they're all on the same footing and will not be competing against applicants from other CoCs. So again, since the way we were getting to some of these answers was a little bit tricky, we wanted to, or not tricky, but just more detailed than maybe on the face of it. We wanted to be very clear in this document. And again, we have it posted on our website. Cameron sent an email about it on the 4th. We've been getting individual emails from different people, and we're sending this out. So any way that we can, we're trying to make sure that people have access to this information. I think that's it.
Thanks, Mary. Also, so you all know, Bobby is using his phone for audio, so he says hello. Hello, Bobby. Thanks for being with us. If no one has questions regarding ESG, we're going to move on. Caitlin Bear is going to present to us on our Ending Veteran Homelessness Initiative and our establishing. Oh, thank you. Sorry. That's why I skipped it. So yesterday, probably most of you have seen that the Tier 1 announcements for the CoC were released. I'm putting up here our list of awards. It's actually 2 pages. And we were very happy to see that not only did all of our Tier 1 projects get funded, we also, that included 2 bonus permanent supportive housing projects, and it also included a very significant increase in our planning grant, which is now, a little over $1 million. So, again, very, very pleased to see this announcement yesterday. You all may have also received an email from me about this, and we've been informed by HUD that the Tier 2 announcements are going to come out later this spring, and we are optimistic that all of our projects will be funded. So, Eric?
So I should say why we're optimistic. Because I know those of you who have projects or know agencies that have projects in Tier 2 are probably a little worried. And we are actually one of those agencies that has a project in Tier 2. Our HMI's project's in Tier 2. But I just want to make sure everyone knows that last year we had a significant number of projects that were in Tier 2. At the end of the announcements, all of those Tier 2 projects were funded. What makes this different than last year is that last year our bonus projects were not funded. So presumably our CoC application did not score as high last year as it may have scored this year. So I feel even a little more optimistic than last year that our Tier 2 projects will be funded. Now, that you can't take that to the bank, but and you should still knock on wood, which I'm doing. But this is very similar to what happened last year. So if you're in one of those Tier 2s or know an agency in one of those Tier 2 spots, please tell them not to think that all hope is lost. It's far, far from that. So, and if you're in Tier 1, congratulations.
Absolutely.
We are very happy.
And I think I've heard from most of those Tier 2 projects, but we'll just echo what Eric said. We're really optimistic, and congratulations to those of you that have already received some good news. Now, I'll try this again. Again, if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to put those in the chat box or raise your hand. And we are going to now move on to Caitlin and Ending Veteran Homelessness.
Awesome, thanks Cameron. Special hello to Bobby Ehrig, my SSVF grantee. This is probably something you're already pretty familiar with, so just bear with us as I explain this one more time. This is something I've been working with our SSVF grantees on for a little while. I should mention SSVF is an acronym for Supportive Services for Veteran Families, which is a program that is funded through the Department of Veterans Affairs. It is a homelessness services program that does a rapid rehousing and a homelessness prevention piece. And the reason why we are currently trying to establish a CoC-wide definition was born out of 2 main initiatives. And one is that nationally there's an initiative to end veteran homelessness, and part of doing that is to establish a goal for our community. And the second part of it is one of our duties as a CoC lead for the SSVF grant to be able to establish that goal for our SSVF grantees. So why would we focus on veterans instead of other very deserving homeless populations? It boils down to a couple of different things. First is that it is a federal strategic initiative in opening doors, according to the 2015 revised the plan in opening doors. I'm tripping over my words right now. But there are a lot of other reasons why starting with veterans is a good idea. For one, veterans are a population that already have access to a wealth of resources that other populations don't have access to. Veterans have their own healthcare system. They have their own employment programs. There's a lot of peer programs. They do stand-downs with special resources for veterans. And so it makes sense to start out with a very well-connected community, so then we can make the case that other communities, were they to have these same sorts of resources, could be as successful as our veterans were in getting housed. We're also piloting a systems approach to ending homelessness. This is something you've probably heard us talk about a lot. Systems change, a community approach. We're really trying to change the way that we're looking at the issue of homelessness, to where we're not maintaining homelessness, but to where we are truly ending homelessness and setting up systems to where homelessness is not something people will have to experience, or if they do have to experience it, that will be rare, brief, and non-recurring experience. This goes hand in hand with coordinated entry, which is something that Sophia Cheka, our systems change coordinator, has been working with some of our communities on. And we're really trying to, with this initiative, pilot that approach in many of our different communities, so that way we can start with veterans and then continue the work with the groundwork that we've laid for veterans with other homeless populations such as family, youth, and chronic homelessness, and eventually all types of homelessness. And the last reason, to me it makes sense to start with veterans, is that ending homelessness is a huge issue. It is an elephant of an issue. It's huge. There's a lot of different people experiencing homelessness, all with very different stages of life and experiences. And if we don't start somewhere, it can be very intimidating. So picking a population to start with, veterans in this case, helps us eat this elephant one bite at a time. We'll go at it population by population and eventually finish the job of ending all types of homelessness, which is the reason why THN exists. So I wanted to outline for you quickly the approach that THN is using to ending veteran homelessness. You guys are here today to help us accomplish the first step in ending veteran homelessness, which is establishing the goal. Until we can get a community-wide definition of what it means to end veteran homelessness, so we know what we're moving towards, it's going to be really difficult for us to work together. So we're trying to get on the same page and speak the same language about what we're talking about when we're saying ending veteran homelessness. So y'all's vote on adopting a definition today will really help set that groundwork for the next few steps. So after we establish this definition, we're going to implement the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness, or you'll hear me call them USICH, benchmarks and criteria. There's a list out of 5 different criteria and 4 different benchmarks that serve as assessments to whether your community has a system in place that ends veteran homelessness. And we would like you guys to, I'll be introducing them to you, but we'd like your feedback and hopefully adoption or agreement on the adoption of these, so that way we can measure whether or not we're ending veteran homelessness with these really awesome pre-vetted metrics from the federal partners. So this is where we are in establishing a definition. It started way back in February, beginning of February, where we presented a proposed definition to our SSVF grantees. The definition I'm going to present to you today has been revised from that, but I wanted to let you all know that it was first presented to who we considered to be experts on serving veterans experiencing homelessness within the BOS. So those were our SSVF grantees. We gave them about a week to give comments, and we closed it and revised it, and we presented it again at the RPG meeting, which some of you were present for, where I did a short presentation on what it means to end veteran homelessness and the revised proposed edition. We then opened it again for comment for the public. to let us know what they thought about it, and closed that at the beginning of this week. And now we are presenting it to you. So we are in the little bubble that says today. We're hoping that we will finally get a definition nailed down today, hopefully to be put in place by April 1st. So I wanted to give you a little snapshot of what the comments were like for the proposed definition. After the initial SSVF webinar, we did a vote in the webinar, and all but one grantee voted for the adoption of the definition as it was at that time in its current incarnation. We waited about a week for comments to come in, and most of the concerns focused around metrics. Our first definition didn't really have any metrics in it. It just said that an end to veteran homelessness meant that we had a system in place where homelessness was rare, brief, and non-recurring if it could not be prevented. So we revised that definition to include metrics, so that way it was a little bit more clear exactly what it meant and what the system looked like. Then whenever we opened it up for public comment, we got 3 respondents for our public comment period, and each one of them said, yes, please adopt this. So we have not received any comments asking us to revise it, so I have not revised the definition since I presented it to the RPG, or presented it at the RPG meeting. So it'll be pretty much the same. So if you attended the RPG meeting, you will notice some similarities between what I'm about to show you and what you've already heard. So this is the proposed definition. The beginning paragraph where it says an end to veteran homelessness, that part was the original definition that was proposed. Everything that follows was what we revised based upon people's comments. So the first part is the same, and then we added that specifically a community would have the capacity to quickly identify and engage veterans at risk of and experiencing homelessness, that the community would have the capacity to intervene to prevent the loss of housing and divert veterans from entering the homelessness services system, that we can provide them immediate access to shelter and crisis services without barriers to entry while permanent stable housing is secured, and when homelessness does occur, that we can quickly connect veterans to housing assistance. And then at the end, we added that we were going to use the USICH criteria and benchmarks to measure this. So that's how we altered the definition based upon your comments. All right, so these are the reasons why we think it's a good idea to adopt the USICH criteria and benchmarks. There's a lot of different ways that we could have gone about measuring our progress towards this goal, towards the definition. The reason why we like the USICH criteria and benchmarks is that the metrics are pre-vetted by the federal partners. They've poured a lot of research and time into determining what good metrics are for determining an effective homelessness services system, and I think that they have probably done a more thorough job than anyone else could have done. There's also a wealth of support and resources that are widely available both on the USICH website, the VA website, and through our TA providers. They're very familiar with these metrics, and so there's a lot of support for us in using them and implementing them and helping you understand and implement them in your community. There's also a really wonderful tool out right now. It's called the Master List Template. A master list is one of the best practices for ending veteran homelessness, is to be able to identify all veterans and have them on one contiguous list. And there's a really great template out right now that synergizes very well with the USICH criteria and benchmarks. It synergizes so well, in fact, there is a button you can push on the master list template and it will automatically calculate the benchmarks for you. So we think that it takes out a lot of the work that you'll have to do in determining whether or not you're meeting the benchmark. Do a whole lot of math and data collection. It will be in one place. And also there is an initiative for communities to apply for federal recognition that they have ended homelessness. So far there are 2 states and 21 communities have officially ended veteran homelessness and have federal recognition of their accomplishment. So if that's something that your community wants to work towards, already adopting this criteria and benchmark puts you in a really great place to be able to apply for that as a community. So you will already be ready and you will already be held to the same standards that the federal government would like you to be held to. Very quickly, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. I just wanted to walk you through what the USICH criteria are. They're pretty simple. The first one says that your community has identified all veterans experiencing homelessness. That's where that master list comes in. If you've got the master list and you know where most of your veterans experiencing homelessness are, that your community has the capacity to provide them shelter immediately to any veteran who wants it. So you're going to have to work on building capacity for shelters for veterans. That the community only provides service-intensive transitional housing in limited instances. That boils down to putting a really heavy emphasis on access to permanent housing over transitional housing. And that the community has capacity to assist veterans to move swiftly into permanent housing, which goes hand in hand with number 3. And then last is that the community has resources, plans, and a system capacity in place should any veteran become homeless or be at risk of homelessness in the future. So what you'll notice about the criteria is that nowhere on there does it say there are 0 homeless veterans living on your streets. What it does say is that your system works in such a way that it can shelter veterans that fall into homelessness and that they can rapidly put veterans back into housing. That's something that we put in the final definition that I'm going to present to you here at the end, is that there can be a lot of misconceptions about what an end to veteran homelessness means. And it's really important that we're clear about that in our definition and in the way that we speak about it. So we want to emphasize that an end to veteran homelessness is a system that has to be maintained over time and not a one and done, today there are no veterans on my streets, therefore we've ended veteran homelessness. It's a little bit more expansive than that, and we wanted the definition to include that. There are also benchmarks. These are the specific data points that go hand in hand with the criteria. These are the ones that will automatically calculate for you should you use the master list template that's been issued. It helps you calculate whether or not chronic homelessness among veterans has been ended. It defines what quick access to permanent housing is. They define quick as under 90 days, and it will automatically calculate that data point for you. By the community has sufficient permanent housing capacity, they mean that the amount of veterans that you're placing into housing is greater than the number of veterans that are entering homelessness. And then the community is committed to housing first and provides service-intensive transitional housing to veterans experiencing homelessness only in limited instances. It has a way of tracking if veterans have been offered permanent housing before they are placed in service-intensive transitional housing. So again, these are all metrics that will automatically calculate for you. Don't think about it too hard. It's quite easy to track. I was going to show you a quick snapshot of what the master list template looked like. I've already mentioned some of the benefits of using it, but here again, it minimizes the amount of work to do because you can click the button and it'll calculate for you. It synergizes very well with the criteria and benchmarks, and it's a good indicator of when your community is ready to apply for federal recognition. This is a little snapshot of what it looks like. It actually goes on for several columns to the right, and it's got a lot of different data points that you can enter and a lot of different things that you can track. The important thing about this list is not to be afraid of it. I introduced this to my SSVF grantees a while ago, and a lot of them started getting headaches because they already had this really awesome master list template they were using in their communities. This master list collected a lot more data points than they were collecting at the time, and they were worried about having missing data elements. So if you've already started your master list, I would still encourage you to look at this one because the only data points that you need to have are the ones that are underlined, and there's like maybe 6 of them that are underlined out of the 20 plus columns that are on this list. So we're not mandating that anyone use this list, but we think it'll be really, really helpful as communities start their initiatives towards ending veteran homelessness, and it's something that I'm happy to do more education on as people start those initiatives. And then lastly, having this definition that you guys are going to vote on today will pave the way for the entire balance of states to participate in this initiative. Right now, it's been mainly our SSVF grantees, our HUD-VASH folks, and the VA who've been focusing on it, but we're realizing that they can't do it alone, and we really need a community approach. And we want the community to be part of learning all these really valuable best practice lessons in learning to end homelessness of any kind, but in this case, veteran homelessness. So that way, as we move forward to focus on families, youth, and chronic homelessness, that people are already familiar with these best practices, and that there is a table that everyone is already sitting at together to do planning, to do case conferencing, and we think it can be really valuable for ending other kinds of homelessness, using veteran homelessness as a pilot. And then we're learning that it is totally possible for veteran homelessness to be ended. Like I mentioned before, there are 21 communities and 2 whole states that have done it, and we would like to join their ranks. We know that it's possible and that we can do it. And if you're interested in learning more about ending veteran homelessness and some great strategies that you can use, there's going to be a Ending Veteran Homelessness Boot Camp that Sophia and I are hosting on March 15th at 1:30 p.m. We'll make sure that Cameron sends you guys the link, so that way if you've gotten it? Oh, well then, we hope you'll consider attending. We think it's going to be really great. We're going to have Bob Polster from USICH and some folks from the VA there as well as our TA providers. So it's going to be, and our HUD regional representative will be there. So we're really hoping that you guys can attend and learn a little bit more about what it takes to end veteran homelessness in a community. So I'm going to pause here for questions. I suppose I should probably show them the actual definition, how it's going to look when we publish it, so that way you guys can get a good look about what we're putting out to the public before you vote on it. So I broke this up into, I think, 5 parts. There's a preface to the definition that explains that ending veteran homelessness is a system, not a number. And then we go into the proposed definition, which is exactly what I read to you off the slide. And then if you'll scroll down, Cameron, I go through the USICH criteria and benchmarks, and then the conclusion wraps it all up very nicely and says that ending veteran homelessness doesn't mean that no one is ever going to experience a housing crisis again, but we're going to have this robust system in place that helps people get back into housing as quickly as possible, and that the system will be sustainable and that we can keep going. It's a process and it's a system, it's not a number. So as we put that out on the website, we wanted to be really clear to the public and to our CoC members what that means, so as to be very, very clear about what we're trying to accomplish. So I guess I'll pause at this point for questions or complaints.
I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone just to see if y'all have any questions about this. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to vote on this or our other action items today because we don't have enough board members present, but I do want to go through each of our voting items, get and answer questions from you all so that we can send out, luckily, just by the skin of our teeth, we passed the electronic board voting policy at the last meeting, so we'll be sending all of these proposed items out for a vote electronically. But I am going to unmute you all to see if anyone has questions. And some of you are self-muted, so feel free to type in any questions, any concerns. Like I said, I feel like we've really done our due diligence from the balance of state perspective, and really all signs point to this. This makes sense for the balance of state, and we're really looking forward to this kicking off our push to ending veteran homelessness.
Our Vets at Home TA also supports this.
Yeah, our Vets at Home TA and our SSVF TA are very strong advocates for using the US. Yeah. Well, A, for a common definition, and B, for it to be the USICH criteria and benchmarks.
Okay, so if no one has comments or questions, again, unfortunately we won't be able to vote on these items today, but I am going to go ahead and go through and discuss them. So item B, regarding Montgomery County leaving the balance of state and joining the Houston Continuum of Care. Eric and I...
Jesse's question.
Sorry, Jesse has a question. Jesse asked if he could share this information with the VA Family and Family Endeavors, and yes, absolutely, they should have already received this information.
You should have.
But please feel free to share it with them. Thanks, Jesse.
And absolutely let them know that that's something that you want to be on board with, so that way as they're forming committees to end veteran homelessness, that they know that you guys want to be sitting at that table with them. I think that would be really great to make that connection.
Absolutely. Okay, so Eric and I made the journey to Houston in the rain yesterday and met with the Houston Continuum of Care leadership and 2 of their TA providers from Housing Innovations. Is that right?
Yeah.
So there has been some discussion about Montgomery County joining the Houston Continuum of Care. They're currently covered by the balance of states. We have 2 existing projects there with Montgomery County Emergency Assistance. 1 permanent housing project and 1 transitional project. They total around $147,000. This is something the balance of state has been hoping we would start to see with some of the larger CoCs and taking in their donut counties. We feel like this is a really good step in that direction. We feel like this will be extremely beneficial to the clients that are being served in this county, because we know that they're accessing services in Houston, and some of them they're not able to access because they are not in part of Houston's service area. So we met with the leadership from the Homeless Coalition, with the balance of state, well, Eric and I, and with the Houston CoC to kind of discuss the pros and cons and what this would look like for Montgomery County and for the balance of state. And we all left the meeting feeling like this would be a really good move for everyone, but most importantly for the clients of that county. And we would only potentially be losing, again, 1 transitional and 1 permanent housing program that would impact our funding. There was also a bonus project recently funded for Beaumont. We're, 90% sure that
Montgomery County.
I'm sorry. Well, that was the other bonus project. Thank you. That this will not impact our pro rata or annual renewal demand. We're getting confirmation on that, but everyone we've spoken to seems to agree with our interpretation of that. I'm going to let Eric jump in, and then I'll continue.
It will affect our pro rata just in the sense that we will not include Montgomery County in that pro rata. Montgomery County is probably $400,000 to $500,000, so ultimately it will not have a significant effect because our pro rata is around $38 million now.
Almost $35 million.
So from a financial standpoint, that county leaving the balance of state really doesn't hurt the balance of state. In fact, it may help the balance of state, since that is a county that our staff would not be working with, and we can dedicate more resources to the other counties. And really what's most important is just what Cameron said. This county is right on the outskirts of Harris County, where Houston is. They're already working with Houston. They're already accessing services in Houston. This just really makes it official. That relationship between those 2 counties, the responsibility of Harris County to Montgomery County is strengthened, and ultimately the folks that benefit the most are the clients. They're going to be able to access services and housing much faster. It's going to be more efficient. So it's a win-win. We see it as a win-win it's a win-win-win.
Yeah.
Because it's a win for the balance of state community. It's a win for the Texas 700, which is the Houston CoC, and it's a win for Montgomery County and the clients there. So it could be a quadruple win if you want to look at it that way. But so we think it's a really good move, and we hope that there will be more of these moves in the future. We don't need 216 counties. We don't need double what almost every other state has in their balance of state projects. So, but what we do need is for our clients to be served efficiently and effectively, and this is one of the ways we can do it. So that's the why we were doing it.
Thanks, Eric. So what that process looks like is we will need you to vote on it electronically. The local homeless coalition is going to vote on it, and the Houston CoC board is going to vote on it. And again, as Eric said, definitely we believe a triple win, possibly a quadruple win. So want to also see now if you all have any questions about this. Okay, not seeing any questions or comments. If you think of one, feel free.
Kelly agrees with the decision.
Thank you, Kelly. So moving on to item C, which is a vote on supportive services only reallocation. So you all are aware we currently have 2 supportive services only projects funded in the balance of state. They are both in Corpus Christi. One is with Goodwill, and one is with the Wesley Community Center. I'm going to give you the history and again ask Eric to jump in when needed, but so you all are aware, it's been, as long as I've been involved in CoC programs, since HUD has allowed a new SSO to be funded, so over 9 years at least.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing is, these projects are not providing housing, which is what HUD does and what the balance of state does. So we're not saying there's not a need for them or they're not doing good work, but we can't continue to fund them. The only SSO projects that have been released in the NOFA have been related to coordinated entry. If those are in the NOFA again this year, you know, those would be options. Eric has been working with these 2 projects for probably 3 years.
As long as Corpus Christi's been apart.
But I mean, about this specific discussion.
Yeah, about 3 years. Yeah.
About 3 years has been, you know, saying kind of heads up, you know, this is coming. We've even, at one point, the balance of state hired consultants to help these projects look at possible reallocations. I've recently reached out to them when we are planning the Provider Connect workshops just to inquire if they had any interest in reallocating to housing programs, and both have said no. So what we would like to vote on, and again, this will be electronically, and when I had that exchange with them, I also just reminded them of their conversations with Eric and did point out to them that we were going to be asking the board to vote and that they would not be eligible to compete in the next competition. So again, this isn't, again, I feel like THN has done their due diligence long before I arrived. This isn't going to be a surprise to anyone. We do need to have some further discussion on whether or not these dollars will stay in Corpus Christi, and we're not going to have that discussion today. But we do want to give these projects notice, and we need your vote in order to do that. So unless Eric wants to add anything, you know, our vote will be to inform these projects that they will not be eligible to compete in the next CoC competition. And we also would love to hear from you all if you have any comments or questions on this matter. Someone has a question.
Foxy, a question. Bobby, go ahead and type it in. I'm just going to mute on everybody so we can have a conversation about this.
Bobby still can't talk.
Bobby, audio pin is #47#.
Okay. Will we get, I'm going to read your question, Bobby. Will we get the info ahead of time of any voting or discussion on the issue so that we can absorb it early? I guess that's what we're doing now.
Like prior to the meeting today, like could they have gotten some information ahead of time so you would know how to vote today? Is that what he's asking?
I don't think so.
I'll send it now.
I mean, Bobby, I'm not sure I'm understanding your question. So our hope is to have the discussion today with you all that are present, and then when we send out these items for vote, we're going to include a recording of the meeting today, and also ask any members that weren't present if they have questions or comments. You know, we can reply all and absolutely do that via email. Does that answer your question?
Hi, this is Jesse in Corpus. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jesse.
Okay. So with these SSO projects not being funded, the dollars are going to, or they're not. The dollars won't be lost. I mean, the funding will not be lost, but so they'll be reallocated to new projects or current projects. I'm just not clear on that part.
You're cutting out, Jesse. Can you ask one more time?
Yes, I was just wondering with Goodwill and Wesley and not being awarded, that funding will be reallocated to new projects or current projects.
What happens to the funding for Kathy's?
Yeah, the idea is it will be funded to new projects, and they will be new rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing projects. And
Okay,
also,
got it.
Bobby, does that answer your question, Jesse?
Yes, that answers it. I'm just glad that we're not losing the funding, that we don't lose it as part of the balance of state.
Do this early. Bobby, the reason we are sending this out for an electronic vote, and I think this is your question, is because we do not have a quorum of board members on the line today in order to vote. We need at least a minimum of 5 board members, and we unfortunately only have 4. Okay,
yeah.
and that was the question. Any other questions regarding SSO reallocation? And just so you all are aware, this will be the first of many reallocation discussions. The rest will probably be, they won't be as difficult because there'll be projects choosing to reallocate, but we're definitely starting to have conversations with several of our transitional housing projects, and we'll be doing that with our second round of Provider Connect workshops for those grantees that we haven't discussed this with yet. And then I guess I'm going to move on. The other thing we discussed at the last meeting, a revised meeting schedule, and that also meant fewer board meetings. We did a poll, and I think we got a 100% response that people would like to see that. So we asked about moving to quarterly meetings. When Mary and I sat down to look at this schedule, we weren't able to get it quite quarterly, but we're definitely fewer. And then the goal is next year to only have quarterly meetings. So I'm going to put up on the screen the proposed schedule. If I can find it. Go ahead. It's a Word doc, so.
Okay. So as Cameron said, we took a poll at the last meeting, and you all were in favor of, I think the question actually asked about moving to bi-monthly meetings, or every 2 months. Not quite as few as quarterly, but not as many as every month. And so, again, as Cameron and I were looking at how we might do that, considering we're about halfway through the year, we wanted to tell you why we are proposing this option, which is more than every other month, but less than every month. One of the main reasons is that we've got the full membership meeting on September 21st, which will be held immediately prior to our Texas Conference on Ending Homelessness, which will be in Austin this year. And that's the one in-person meeting that we have planned for the year. New board member elections will be held on that day. And if whoever is a new board member that's elected that day, if we had done the every other month schedule, they would not have met for the first time until 7 weeks later in November. And we thought that was really too long to wait to incorporate new members into our board. Also, that option would have only meant one meeting in the October through December quarter, which would have been in November. So we looked at a slightly different option, which is the one you see on the screen, and that is, you'll see the meeting today, March 9th, which is just the board. March 23rd is one of the RPG meetings that we had identified for you all to attend. Although, yes, all the RPG meetings technically are full membership meetings. So we do hope that everyone attends all of them. And then we looked at going bi-monthly from there. But again, because of the way the September meeting worked out, we are proposing an April, June, August, September, October, and December. That does delete 3 meetings from your schedule for the year, May, July, and November. So we thought it was somewhat of a good compromise that was a little less than monthly, but not quite as brief as every other month. And we're hoping that you will find this that works well for your schedule as well, to, again, find a balance between meeting regularly and often enough to keep the business of the CoC going without overburdening someone. So this is what we came up with, and I think we were going to discuss whether we need to take a vote on it or not, or if we'll just go for it.
Yeah, unless someone feels strongly that we need to take a vote on it, I feel like the poll we did at the last meeting, and also just the way people generally seem to feel about meetings, my instinct is that we just move forward with this, but we're absolutely open to hearing from you all on this. If you all feel like we need to vote, we will add this to the list. Does anyone want to see us take a vote on the revised meeting schedule, or are you okay with less meetings? And you can just feel free to type in your comments or questions. Okay, I'm going to take your silence as cheers of excitement and agreement, and we will send out, thank you, Kelly, we will send out the revised board meeting schedule. Also, just while we've got you all on the call, any suggestions to us on how to hold on, we've got a question from Carol. In August, since school is out, can we make it later in the month?
They won't go back until
We can absolutely look at that. We'll have to look and see what else we have on the schedule, Carol, but we'll take a look.
One thing to keep in mind is that the conference this year is in September, so if you meet then, it'll be closer to the next meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
Plus, they have an RPG meeting the 4th Wednesday of August. This would be the 2nd Wednesday of August 10th.
Does anybody else have any comments on the meeting schedule? Okay, thank you. I, again, was just going to ask if you all have any suggestions for us. We're hoping fewer meetings will help, but also, you know, we were very close to not being able to vote on items last month due to lack of attendance, and here we are having the same issue this month. I sent out an email with the registration. You all have the schedule. I asked anyone who wasn't going to be able to attend to let me know. I didn't hear from anyone that they wouldn't be able to attend. So if you all have any suggestions, you know, we would like to hear them now, or feel free to email myself or Mary and let us know. I think one thing we're going to start doing is sending out a second reminder the day of the meeting, but it really impedes our progress when we can't vote during the time we've already set aside for these meetings. And now those of you who were able to be here are going to have to take time to vote electronically. So if anyone has any comments or suggestions, please feel free, you know, to raise your hand, put something in the chat box now, or you know, send us an email or a call. Carol's asking, can we get a reminder the day before? Absolutely. We can start doing that.
Kelly had a comment earlier saying that's how she has to get her board participation. Just remind them the day of or the day before.
Okay. And Kelly's also said that's how she gets her board participation up, is reminding them the day of or the day before. So we will start doing that. Bobby says we should enforce the normal rules for board participation. And I don't have in front of me our required participation for board members.
Same as attend 75%.
Yeah, 75%. So that's another thing we've been tracking, but we've started looking at board participation. And if a member is not attending 75%, they're going to be hearing from us soon. And, well, everyone will be hearing from us soon. There are 8 board members, Carol, to answer your question.
Now to clarify, when we don't have a quorum, does a vote get counted? Like, does their attendance get counted? So today is a free one for everybody.
No.
I thought you were asking earlier when we cancel a meeting.
Yeah, but today.
Today.
It counts as a meeting.
It counts as a
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, y'all, we're chattering. Your attendance today does count as a meeting. Kelly, thank you. She is smiling face liking us that you all will be held accountable for attendance. We're glad that you feel that way. Yeah, just out of respect for everyone's time, we want to make sure these meetings are as meaningful as possible and we can get as much done as possible in them. And it also, you know, it's going to prevent staff from moving forward on items because we weren't able to vote today. So it'll be interesting to see how our first electronic vote goes. And I think that is it for us. Just wanted to wrap up and give you all another opportunity to ask any questions on any of the topics that we covered today. And just want to also thank you again for your service and for your attendance.
Bye, Bobby.
Bye.
Thank you all. All right, we are going to call it for today. Y'all please keep your eye out for an email, not only including our materials from today, but requesting a vote on 3 important items. And I believe, if I remember the policy correctly, Mary, we give them 2 days, 2 business days. So I hope we get this stuff sent out to you all tomorrow because we want to start moving on it. Thank you all again. Have a great rest of your week.